Hey everyone, my name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. If you guys like investing in the most undervalued assets in the world, click subscribe. Give me a thumbs up for this content if you like this content. Today I'm going to go over an overall market update. I'm going to look at conditions to see if the market conditions are still ripe for our investments. I'm going to look at the dollar. I'm going to look at a whole bunch of kind of random companies, diversified miners, stuff like that, just to see what the market's telling us. So I'm going to jump in here, look at the overall market, and see what we have going on. So first up is the dollar. And here's what the dollar looks like. We're declining in this pattern here. We broke out to the upside, potentially kind of pop back in. Perhaps this thing will fall lower very soon. We'll have to monitor it to see if it breaks to the upside or the downside. But typically when you're hugging the bottom channel, it wants to break to the downside, typically. Next, we've got the 30-year U.S. Treasury yield. That's a clear break to the upside, signaling that inflation's coming, which makes me think that the dollar is going to break to the low, to the low side. Next, we've got the 10-year U.S. Treasury yield. It's coming up on its downtrend line. This is a much more manipulated metric. Nevertheless, it's coming up on its downtrend line. Next is TLT, Treasury bonds, and it does not look good for Treasury bonds. Broke to the downside. We had a pop higher, but then we've got this big down day here. And if this finished here with this little up day, I think it's going to go lower. So that means yields higher, bonds lower, and probably dollar lower. Next, here's the Dow Jones Industrial Average. It's kissing the top right here. This thing has a long way to go down if this thing jets down like one of these moves. So this could potentially have a lot of downside. Could it drag our commodity stocks lower? Yes, or I think yes in the beginning, and then I think they'll break apart. To tell when that's going to happen, I don't necessarily know. It did that last cycle. It kind of dragged them down in the beginning. They broke, and then they went way higher. Commodities, that is. But that's what the Dow Jones looks like right now. S&P 500, it peaked out just over the top here. Perhaps it's going to get sucked back into this big megaphone pattern. Next is Southern Copper Corp. One thing I want to tell you, it broke to the upside and it's going vertical. And I don't know, I just hold this thing. I'm not going to sell it, but it is going vertical. We'll see what happens. Same with VALE. This thing jumped quite a bit higher. It's like a 40% jump, pretty dang quick. So you're going to see some volatility here because if the market's going to pull back, potentially, this might get dragged down with it for a little bit. You just have to wait and see what happens. Be patient. Here is Contango Oil and Gas, and I charted this in the beginning of the day, but it broke its downtrend line, and it's looking very good to move on up. So Contango, good job, high five, good work there. It's looking good. Now Deep Yellow was up quite a bit. I charted this one too, some years ago. It was also at 60, 61 cents. So you might see a little bit of resistance here when we pop through this. So maybe it hits it and then pulls back and then tries to go, up. Or it punches through and then we pull back to this 60, 61 cent area right here. Here's Cheniere Energy. I know I was talking about liquefied natural gas. This guy's looking like it's going to break out of its little chart pattern here. Looking pretty good. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. Here's SM Energy. I just want to draw a trend line in here. We've got a little bit of a pullback going on right now. Not too bad, but it is a little bit of a pullback. And if you're looking to either hold it, I'm holding it, or purchase, I'd wait a little bit longer to see if this thing turns. If you get a nice bullish engulfing like this day right here, or this day right here is a bullish engulfing, or this day is a bullish engulfing. If you see a chart pattern like that, this little guy right here is one too, I would be a buyer. Here is Reconnaissance Energy Africa. Drew in this big trend line here. This is a cup, a handle pattern. Broke to the upside. It's probably going to run for a little bit, but this one looks pretty good. RECO or RECAF. And that's what I have for today. These are the ones that I saw that looked very good. And remember, there's going to be a lot of volatility here. If we have a market pullback overall, in terms of Dow and all these other companies, it could potentially drag them a little bit lower or try to drag them lower. But in the long term, remember, we are positioning for future deficits in a lot of these materials, and we've got inflation at our back pushing our investments forward. The other stocks do not like inflation and do not like rising interest rates. They are going to eat it at some point and go down. These, they may get affected on a very short-term basis. We don't want to try timing this. You just cost average in, get your shares, and hold on, because this is the undervalued sectors that will eventually, that money's going to eventually rotate into our sector. It just takes time. If you guys like this content, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.